August 6, 2011, a military helicopter, Extortion 17, carrying 38 men, including 25 of the elite SEAL Team 6, 5 National Guard and Army Reserve, and 8 Afghan commandos, was shot down over Taliban-controlled territory in eastern Afghanistan. They had been on a top-secret mission to take out a high-value target. It was the worst loss of life in a single day since the war in Afghanistan began. Per a 1,250-page military report, it was simply the result of a quote-unquote lucky shot by Taliban soldiers perched on top of a building. Per families of those killed and military experts at a press conference held May 9th, this is a lie, among a host of other lies. That one of two things happened. 1. The Obama administration sent American soldiers on a suicide mission. Or 2. The Obama administration set up our American heroes, that is, had them murdered. Whatever the truth is, per the families and military experts, this resulted in a massive cover-up by the Obama administration. Let us look at some of the things that the families and military experts pointed out in the press conference. We have identified 7 topics. 1. Vietnam-era CH-47 helicopter used. The helicopter used to carry our troops into Taliban territory was a decrepit Vietnam-era CH-47 Chinook, built in the 1960s. The normal helicopter used for special ops, the helicopter SEAL Team 6 exclusively trains with, was the state-of-the-art MH-47.
It would be fair to say that before our son's death, Billy and I thought that we understood the severity that we faced as a nation under this current administration. But after his death, we began searching for answers, as Billy told you already. And as we searched, we became tragically aware that perhaps the cruelest, most deceitful acts of this administration have been perpetrated against the very ones fighting and dying to protect and defend it. We found that on the night our son and 29 other brave, fearless American warriors were shot out of the sky on a mission to capture a high-value target in the Tangi River Valley of Afghanistan, we learned that this valley was an incredibly hostile territory which our military had cleared on 7 prior occasions and then turned back over to the Afghanis, who could not maintain its stability. We learned that night that the mission was so dangerous that it had to be authorized out of theater, but even then the following took place. The most elite warriors in our nation's history, the now unfortunately not so secret SEAL Team 6, were flown into battle, as Billy said that night, on a CH-47D Chinook chopper rather than the Special Forces aviation that these men trained with throughout their entire careers. Even more insulting, this conventional airframe that these 30 Americans were forced to do battle in that night was built in the early 1960s and last retrofitted in 1985.
No drone was used to take out the Taliban positions. Although the military could easily have taken out the Taliban positions with a drone strike, per the families and military experts, this was not done because 1. There were possible quote-unquote friendlies among the Taliban, and 2. They wanted to, quote, win the minds and hearts of the enemy, unquote.
I said, why didn't they take it out with a drone? To win the heart, what's his name? Admiral, he's lucky he ain't here. Admiral Horowitz turns around and says, to win the hearts and minds. How about my heart? How about my mind? I cry every day. My kids cry. To win the hearts and minds of them people, they hate us. They hate, my son told me they hate us. They know the rules of engagement. After the crash site, the Taliban walked up with kids in front of them to see if they could skin our kids alive.
3. Intel indicated Taliban were planning on shooting down a helicopter. Although the military had intel that the Taliban were planning on firing on a helicopter, although an intense battle had been raging for several hours, although normal protocol mandated that the CH-47 required at least 1 gunship escort, all normal rules of war were suspended.
Mr. Strange brought up an incredible point when he stood there before the Commander-in-Chief. If we had people that understood what it meant to get off of in a combat zone, in a raid, I think the decisions you would see happening and the actions would be different. If we had people that had ever been in an aircraft and hooked up and jumped out into the darkness not knowing what would be waiting for them, that they would be making different decisions for our men and women. I can tell you, having been an artillery officer, you don't send anyone into a combat assault on an aircraft without first preparing that landing zone, by first suppressing any type of air defense that could be around it. I had also the privilege of sitting in on that classified briefing. That operation had been going on for 3.5 hours. To launch a Chinook helicopter into the night to go into an operation, a hot zone, that was something that was absolutely violates every single principle of employment and tactics for the United States military. Why that was done, I have no idea.
By May 11, the military says, Intel knew that over 100 Taliban fighters were moving in to the Tangi River Valley to shoot down, to give an extraordinary effort to shoot down an American helicopter loaded with American warriors.
The Taliban sitting there with machine guns, motorcycles, phones. Who called them to tell them?
Now for some of the more sinister aspects of the charges. 4. Original Afghan commandos were pulled at the last minute. There were 8 Afghan commandos on board the CH-47. Who were they? We don't know. At the last minute, they were replaced without changing the manifest. It was as if someone knew they were going on a suicide mission and pulled them out. The official in charge of the investigation, General Jeffrey Colt, in his 1,250-page report, did not address this fact. Additionally, it appears the Taliban knew the CH-47 was coming, knew the exact time and route they would be using, that the Afghan commandos originally on the helicopter probably tipped the Taliban off.
By the time that Aaron deployed in June, Karen and I knew that Aaron and these men would be working in the Tangi River Valley, Wardak province, Afghanistan. We knew, apparently it's very possible that the Taliban knew. As Larry told you, Karen, in the military testimony, 7 Afghan that night commandos are not the same names who were on the manifest. In a meeting with a high-ranking admiral, I said something about this, said it must not be a big deal. The man with him said, Mr. Vaughn, it's a very big deal, because it was passed over. He said, it's a very big deal. That should never happen. In fact, after the crash, we had to notify the families of the men we thought were on the chopper, re-notify them and tell them that their sons were okay. He said, the reason why they were not on the chopper is at the last moment a commander changed his mind about the Afghans he wanted on the chopper. I didn't think to ask the right questions that day. But a few days later, as it weighed in my mind, what commander? What commander? Was this a commander on the chopper with Aaron? Was this a commander on the ground? Was it an Afghan commander? Was it a commander out of theater? Where was the commander? I called SOCOM again, talked to the same guy, asked him those questions. The man who was there a month over the investigation. He said, Mr. Vaughn, we didn't know about the swap.
5. Everyone was immediately cremated. Everyone on Extortion 17 was immediately cremated without permission from the families, supposedly because the bodies were so badly burned in the crash. In fact, the remains of American and Afghan soldiers were more than likely mixed, and American remains may have come home under Afghan flags.
Our families were subjected to what I would consider an atrocity on August 9th of 2011 at Dover Air Base. We stood stunned as 38 unidentified caskets were ceremonially paraded in front of us, each with equal honor. 30 were covered appropriately with the American flag. 8, with equal honor, were draped with the Afghani flag, which raises another question that I demand an answer to. Since most of the remains, due to a terrible fire in the explosion, had to be identified through DNA and dental records, here in the States, is it possible that one or more of our sons, that my son, came home under the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan's flag, all for the guise of appeasement?
No eye in the sky. The eye went off. When the helicopter got shot down, it's in the paperwork. We didn't know what helicopter got shot. It took us 10 minutes. My son, right? My son, Michael, was fighting for his life. Nobody came and helped. They didn't have the pathfinders there to check the area. Nobody checked the light. Nobody counted. Well, who's calling the shots here? This is bullshit. They told me my son had to be cremated. Everybody has to be cremated. My son didn't need to be cremated. I got pictures of my son. He was fighting. He had a gun in his hand. Come on. Fighting for this country, for us. And you're going to lie to me and slap me in the face? I called the command. I said, why'd you cremate my son? My son didn't want to be cremated. He said, what do you mean? I got pictures of him. When I asked for the autopsy report from Dover, they sent me a disc with pictures. He's sitting there fighting. Everybody was burned beyond record. No, everybody wasn't burned beyond record. Another lie.
6. Missing black box. Where is the CH-47 black box? Supposedly it could not be found. This is highly unlikely, as they are virtually indestructible and have a tracking device.
I said, how about the black box? Black box got blown away by the flood. In Afghanistan? Come on. Can't find the black box, which is really orange? I looked it up in Google. Them black boxes don't go away. They lose black boxes in the swamps in Florida, and they find them. You're going to tell me you can't find the black box? Not acceptable.
7. Obama permitted a radical Islamic imam to curse our heroes. In one of the most shocking revelations in the Obama presidency, Obama disallowed the name of Jesus to be spoken during the initial military memorial service in Kabul, but permitted a radical Islamic imam to curse our dead heroes. And 38 men, including 25 of the elite SEAL Team 6, 5 National Guard and Army Reserve, and 8 Afghan commandos, was shot down over Taliban-controlled territory in eastern Afghanistan. They had been on a top-secret mission to take out a Obama administration set up our American heroes, that is, had them murdered. Whatever the truth is, per the families and military experts, this resulted in a massive cover-up by the Obama administration. Let us look at some of the things that the families of those killed and military experts at a press conference held May 9th. This is a lie, among a host of other lies. That one of two things happened. 1. The Obama administration sent American soldiers on a suicide mission. Or 2. The Obama August 6, 2011, a military helicopter, Extortion 17, carried a high-value target. It was the worst loss of life in a single day since the war in Afghanistan began. Per a 1,250-page military report, it was simply the result of a quote-unquote lucky shot by Taliban soldiers perched on top of a building. Per family